Welcome to the Exam Room Podcast, brought to you by the Physicians Committee. Hi, I'm the weight loss champion, Chuck Carroll. Often on this show, we're joined by experts, doctors, and dietitians. But today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. There won't be an expert on the show. Today we're going to be joined by someone who's just like you and me, a person who strives to eat a healthier diet, but sometimes struggles to keep things as healthy as possible. How do they cope with that? How has the pandemic been for them? When there are even new obstacles, ones that we never saw life throwing at us, suddenly we have to conquer them. How does that derail the diet? Some days they're easier than others. Courtland Milloy is a columnist for the Washington Post, and he is here today to tell us how he has been navigating those waters. They've been choppy. The ride hasn't been perfect, but one thing Courtland is authentic. And that's why I'm so glad that he's here today on the Exam Room. My guest today will be speaking at the Fairfax VegFest on Sunday, April 24th in beautiful Herndon, Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C. And now here's why I'm excited to have this gentleman on the program today. Number one, he's a journalist, and of course that's near and dear to my heart. But number two is way back in 2018, Courtland Milloy, you see him right there, he wrote this column with the headline, "I Will Eat Healthier, and This Time I Mean It." And this picture was taken at Green Fair Cafe in beautiful Herndon, Virginia. And it is one of the best whole food plant-based restaurants on the entire planet. And so this gentleman, I'm curious, 4 years removed from this article almost, if he really did mean it. In fact, we've all had some challenges since then. With that, we welcome Courtland Milloy to the program. My friend, it is so good to see you again. It has been forever.
Yeah, great to see you too, Chuck. And the pandemic made it seem like forever. It was more stressful in ways that I would not have imagined a virus would be. But pandemic means pandemic, so it affected everything. And,
well said.
But, there was a time early on when grocery shopping became a challenge. Did you really want to go in there? Did you want to wear a mask? Did you want to even touch those vegetables? People saying, well, if you get the vegetables, you better scrub them with Clorox or wash them. You just didn't know. And I found those to be pretty tough times. I ended up eating a lot of canned beans during that time and not as much leafy things. And as time went on, my exercise stopped. I played tennis, loved to run around the court. But nobody wants to stand on the other side of the court if they think you're going to send a ball back over there full of coronavirus, or however, nobody knew how it spread it really. And so much controversy. The other thing that was challenging was to see people succumb. Otherwise, people who, just friends, people your age, peers, not old people necessarily. This thing was just wreaking havoc on it. And it's like, well, if my days are numbered like this, well, why not go for some of that, some of these favorite delightful things. Mm-hmm. And the thing that kept me pretty much on the path, and I'll tell you where I felt like I was not on the path, was having a library of books like How Not to Die, suicide, fast food genocide type of things, fast food suicide. Dr. Bernard's book on how to reverse, disease, the 21-day Kickstart program, things like that. Eric Adams out of New York had a book that talked about reversing diabetes with it. And so just seeing people continue to stay on the path, and your podcast, just helpful to have. But I still found over time just kind of sliding back almost imperceptibly. You feel your pants get a little bit tighter and you say, well, I'm not running, but I'll get back out there soon, eating a lot of nuts, maybe too much nuts, too many cashews, too many almonds, not enough water, maybe too much sweet juice. This is just me because I was trying, when I said I really meant it, what I really meant was I was going to do this thing perfectly. there would be it was a manifesto that I wrote. I would not do any dietary stuff. I would not eat anything, any plant-based stuff. I mean, any meats, any dairies, and only a certain kind of rich vegetable and beans and stuff, fresh as it can be. And it didn't always work out like that, and I felt bad if I got up in the middle of the night and, and had a snack. So,
Yeah.
is that thing there coming down? Can you see a notice on my phone? I mean, you're gonna have to cut this.
I don't see a notice at all.
Okay,
You
so
are
it doesn't come
crystal
out. Okay.
clear, my
All
friend.
right. Okay. So, and sometimes even, and this is why I like talking to you. You give some slack on. You try to keep things realistic. So, but when I would not do things, when I would eat after a certain time, or when I would put more orange juice and green stuff in my smoothie because I was, thirsty. Sometimes I confuse thirst with hunger, and end up doing, just things that weren't on the plan. I would get a little bit disappointed. And I don't like to be disappointed because that can be a down thing too. Disappointment, depression, anxiety stuff, too much pressure on you, in addition to all the other things, were psychological states that I hadn't thought about before. I mean, just things that hit you. And, when you find other people having difficulties with life and you want to be there for them, that whole caretaker syndrome that you get into. So yeah, there were some challenging times, but my resolve remains, because being addicted to anything, it's just terrible. I was addicted to all things sugar, eggnog, cake, pies. Every new restaurant, I would want to look at, what's the dessert menu say?
You're not alone though, man. You're not alone.
Yeah, but it's but in the meantime, and there were things like, I write, and I try to write regularly about this so that I can at least, it helps motivate. Sure. And meeting Darryl Green, talking about his journey to fitness, eating plant-based, growing his own foods, it's just good to see other people on the path. You get on the path, you're always surprised at who else you'll find on there. There's always a guide, someone, as they say, when the student is ready, and here's Darryl Green, football player, fastest man in the NFL, trying to grow some greens and okra in his backyard.
Oh, man. And I'm telling you, the thing with Darryl though, it's like, he's the kind of guy that I don't think the average football fan would ever think would go that route, to have the fun, the little farm in the backyard where he's growing things. You talk about farm to table. Well, his farm is his backyard and he's just growing, he's picking and he's eating. I think that's the way that you put it. And I think that if more people like Darryl were to step forward and kind of say, hey, macho guy, football fan, it's okay to do this. Like, it doesn't make you any less of a man. Like, if anything, it makes you more of a man because it shows that you're confident in yourself and you can go against the norm. And the norm in this country is the standard American diet full of fat and fast food. You can go against the norm and be every bit as macho as you ever have been. And you can still watch football on Sundays. You can still watch basketball every night of the week. You can still watch racing if that's your thing. Whatever the case may be, you can still be all things man. You're just eating a healthy diet. And there's no shame in that game,
That's right. I met kickboxers, regular boxers, other football players who say that their performance in all areas just improved as a result of going plant-based.
Yep.
Darryl, he said that when he was playing football, this was before they catered, had chefs and things, that they just bring him a big bucket of McDonald's and chicken, and that's what they ate. And he just gulped it down and then went out and just ran up and down. But he stopped that running and found that kind of diet does not work with, a slower lifestyle, right?
For sure.
But he feels much better, he says.
Yeah.
I mean, he looks great.
It kind of makes me wonder how he would perform in today's NFL. I mean, I did this show a couple of years ago with one of the Washington players who was eating a primarily plant-based diet. I mean, he was like 96% of the way there, but he had the team install a smoothie station for him. And it was really, I mean, just incredible. All of the fruits and frozen fruits and vegetables that he had right there, so that after practice, boom, he could make himself a smoothie while his teammates were going over to, the lunch line that's, maybe 20 feet away, that, there they've got the steak, the chicken. I'm sure they could get a hamburger if that's what they wanted. Basically order anything on demand at any time. But there's DJ, and he's just fresh as a daisy, even late in the season. And it just really spoke volumes about the power of eating a healthy diet and the anti-inflammatory properties, and how that really helped him out. And I will never forget that day. And I'll be damned, Courtland, if that wasn't one of the best tasting smoothies I ever had, the one that he made for me. I mean, this guy is a whiz with the Vitamix.
I have to get that recipe. I love a good smoothie.
So let's talk about this, man. One of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you today is that your story is authentic. I feel like a lot of times there's this goal and this pressure that we put on ourselves to be the perfect vegan. And even though we're striving for perfect health, I think when you strive to be so perfect, in a way that can almost be unhealthy, like it becomes kind of an unhealthy obsession. And we're starting to see a little bit more of that. And so, I'm just curious, like, how do you strike that balance of striving for that perfect diet that you were writing about, and then dealing with where things are in reality?
Yeah, well, the reality will, make itself known. For me, it's staying in touch with people and reading about things. I mean, there's motivational literature, there are motivational podcasts, but there are also places like Green Fair where, you can just go and you don't have to think about it. You just look at the menu and you get something, really good to eat. This is a process that I've learned now that transforms the body, to which the mind is part of. So it's a constant process of unlearning, relearning, rediscovering. What you think you're going to feel like, what you think it's going to be like, it's never really going to be. It's just not that. I could not have imagined that taking this path would have me feeling so good in a way that I did not define feeling good before. The lightness of being, the energy, the absence of a weightedness that, let's just call it cholesterol and fat. When that gets out, starts to dissipate, it's a really good feeling. So much so that I probably was starting to take it a little bit for granted after a while. It's just become a thing. Hey, I can do this. I got this going on. Then life hits. I would have a routine where I would, first thing I would do in the morning at a certain time was, to drink my water, make my smoothie. I would chop up my lunch, veggies. I'd have my little raisins and nut snacks and things like that. And then you get a call and another family member needs some help, and you're thrown off your schedule like that, and you go to help, and they're doing their foods and things like that. And the discomfort sometimes of just seeing what people are eating. I mean, Big Mac and cheese, I think the things that got me was like cornbread. I never knew I liked cornbread as much. So, you start picking off a piece of cornbread. This is not meat, right? This is not, it's just cornbread with a little butter in it, and things like that over time, you have to say, oops, it's time to buckle back down, get back to that default perfection thing, So It's like wrenching oneself back into this thing rather than moving smoothly, saying, hey, I see what's happening here. Let me make adjustment. But no, I want to wrench it back. So it's that. I would call it just the process of discovery, self-discovery, figuring out, who I am. What are my triggers? What are the things that, what lines that I just can't cross? The mind is such that, especially when people are dealing in absolutes, perfections, you miss the mark and it's like, well, forget the whole thing, It never got to that point. My line was eggnog, If I'd had one eggnog, I probably wouldn't be here now.
I got you, man. I got you. So,
and it's because the idea is being good to self. You're taking care of self. So why would I beat up on myself? These things kind of come as you go along, and to the point that every new day was a day to do, to go at it again. Every day was just a new day. Here we go again, Let's see if I can, what did I learn from yesterday? That I can bring today. So
that's such a good attitude to have. And, where it gets tricky though, for me, like being somebody who's now kept the weight off for a while though, is like, if I were to slip, one, I'd be really scared of going back to my old ways. And that's just me, right? I mean, I'm so used to eating this way. Like I don't even want a cheat day. But two, it's like, where's that balance between giving yourself permission to indulge today because you can get right back on track tomorrow, but where's the balance between that and then making sure it doesn't happen the next day and then the day after that and the day after that? So you're always indulging and saying, well, tomorrow I can do better, but tomorrow comes, but then tomorrow also then gets pushed to the next day, and the next day and the day after that. So it's like, how did you keep yourself from, having those little cheats every single day?
Again, that's an interesting question. It was never a situation, by the time you get started, it's not like you have a house, you don't have meats around the house anymore, it's not as available. You don't just, you don't make a conscious decision that, I'm just going to grab this meat here because it's not there anymore. So it's not, there's just certain firewalls around things that, there's some holes in it because you're living with other people and things like that, Again, sweets, I think I hit a chocolate chip, not a chocolate chip. I don't like chocolate chip. It was oatmeal raisin, and hit that. And it's like, it didn't taste as good as I thought it was going to taste.
Isn't that funny how that happens?
It is really something. And it's like, and I know enough about me at that point that I'm not going to keep eating it until it starts tasting good. I mean, that's work. That's like pushing over a line. That's like moving into the realm of self-destructive behavior.
Yeah.
You can learn about, enough about it that way, because the whole idea of starting in the first place was, there's something I don't like about what's happening here. I don't like the way I'm feeling. I don't like the way I'm looking. My attitude is bad. And I know from early years, some early little efforts, that you can make yourself feel a whole lot better by eating a lot more vegetables. And you can make yourself feel even more better, if you don't eat the fats and the other stuff. You take out this and you add in that, and add in that exercise, and it just changes it. You become a different person.
Yep.
And when you think about it, it's not that hard, right? It's like, less of this, more of that, and do some exercise, and you change your life.
That's it.
So it's like,
we can make things really, really, really complicated, or we can simplify it. And either way seems to work just as well. So I kind of come from the KISS philosophy, keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this. This is an interesting question. A lot of times in this debate about what is and isn't healthy, you can throw something out there about eating a plant-based diet, and somebody will be like, yeah, well, listen, my grandma lived to be 173 years old. Matter of fact, she was 273 years old, smoked 2 packs a day, ate a pound of bacon every day, and then she still lived to be that ripe old age. In all seriousness, though, longevity does run in your family, and you're still choosing to eat a healthier diet. Why would you go this route when you know that you have some pretty good genes already?
You choked me up with that one. It's called quality of life. You think about when people tell me that, and I get that every time I write something about, the benefits of, plant-based diet. I mean, just the studies, what they say about reversing diseases, feeling better, more energetic, more power to your love life. I mean, it just goes the gamut. Someone will say that, my people live that long. I mean, I wasn't saying you do this to live longer. It's like to live better, and I don't know. I have seen, especially during this pandemic, what existing looks like as opposed to living. And, nobody's going to live forever. So you figure, well, what do you want out of life? And, you want to live relatively pain-free. You want to be able to be creative. You want your mind working. And you don't want to do self-harm. I mean, there's going to be enough things out here to put a hurting on you in life without contributing to it, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So there are those things. It's, I have children, grandchildren. People say, I want to be there for the grand. This is Daryl Green's big thing, I want, when they say, Papa, come to the playground, he says, I don't want to be at the playground holding all the ladies' pocketbooks while everybody else is out running around playing, and I don't want to be holding pocketbooks either. I want to play, and that's, yeah.
That's a heck of a
the person who was eating all of that stuff and still lived to be long life. Just wonder what would life have been like had they not and added these other things.
Touche, my friend. Touche. So listen, you're going to be speaking at the Fairfax VegFest on April 24th. What are you going to be talking about that day? What are people going to hear when they come see you?
Well, I'm chronicling how I do what I do. What kind of progress can I make? And put it like this, I don't know yet. I'm working on it, right? Okay. Because it's a day at a time thing. But one of the most amazing things that I've discovered about plant-based eating is how quickly things happen. You can feel the effects in just days. So at the risk of setting myself up for the jackpot, I want to just, bring it back to some of the earlier, what I really meant. I really mean it this time, and just see what happens just to monitor what happens when I'm going to get back to where I was then, and what changes might have happened. And if it gets too much, and I start saying, this is really unrealistic. I'm too old to be, for this, to be that strict. I'm from the South. I'm fundamentalist oriented, you know what I mean? It's like, what can I say? Heaven and hell, no in between. So just to see what it's like and talk about it, to people. I think that people need to know the distance, how fast things can happen. I'm thinking about your story and how quickly being able to walk a block moved into walk a mile, but when you just did it a little bit every day. And, and you're talking about a lot of pounds that just, melted away because you did a little bit every day. And it's almost miraculous. Yeah. So I want to be able to tap back into the progress coming out of the pandemic, just taking off the mask, and stuff like that. So,
well, the fact that you want to do it, you're motivated to do it, you've got a ton of research already. You already have what it takes. I mean, this is what I tell people all the time. It's like, I'm nothing special. Like, everybody has the exact same thing that I have that's enabled me to keep the weight off, right? I'm really nothing special. I'm just a guy that somehow manage to figure it out, but everybody else can figure it out. And you are going to figure out exactly the perfect formula for you. And it's going to be great. So that, when you get to be 100 years old, you can come over here in your car. Maybe it's a drop top, right? We can go out for a ride, have a good old time, sipping a smoothie. I don't know what the case may be, man, but it'll be okay, man.
I like that. No, count me in on getting a shirt and tie like that, so we can, be styling, right?
All right. Well, look, we'll go shopping before the big event on the 24th, man. We'll have you looking all kinds of smooth.
How about that?
All right.
All right then, man. It's great to see you. And I hate to contradict you. You are special, man.
Just a guy. Courtland Milloy, thank you, my friend.
All right, Chuck. Thank you.
If your health IQ is a couple of points higher than it was a few minutes ago, go ahead and like this video or subscribe to the YouTube channel. And to take it even higher, head over to Apple Podcast or wherever you get your favorite shows. Look for The Exam Room by the Physicians Committee. Hit the subscribe button there as well and help to make your world a healthier place.